Welcome to the Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis, your life resource for manifestation, wellness, and abundance. Tune in weekly to thrive daily. This week's episode coming at you. Good afternoon, Rise to Thrivers. Welcome to today's episode on living with intention, tools for continuing your New Year's intention. Amelia and I are so excited to have you tuning in today, and we want to share a number of tips and tools that we think will help you feel extra successful in your commitments going into the new year, and are beyond excited to share that with you all. Welcome, Amelia, and hello, guests.
What up, party people?
What's up?
What's up, you guys? We're super excited to jump on today and kind of get into the nitty gritty of like after the new year, you know, you set your intentions, or maybe you are a resolutioner or a goal setter. And then there comes the days that follow and the necessity of actually creating actionable strategies so that you can continue to live those intentions. So yeah, we're going to be sharing some juicy nuggets today, hopefully actionable strategies and tools that you can use minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, so that you can keep the momentum going and actually see the fruit and the results of the intentions that you set and the desires that you have for this new year.
Like how to write 2019 on the first time, every time.
Oh my gosh. I'm actually batting 1,000 on that right now. I don't know what batting 1,000 means. I think that's the correct sports analogy, but I'm not actually sure. But what I mean is the one time that I wrote 2019, I wrote 2019 and I did.
Damn, girl.
Yeah.
You can see my 9 more than my 8, but I definitely had to go round 2 on the first go.
Yeah, well, we'll give you a little bit of grace for that.
This time. Yeah.
All right. So I think it would benefit us first to just acknowledge that there is challenge for most of us as we attempt to honor and follow through with the intentions that we set. I know that for myself, I did our vision casting exercise, which was so cool and so powerful. I actually I did it with my husband, which was rad. He was super weirded out by my crystals and candles, but beyond that, we actually ended up having a really good time doing that the night before New Year's Eve. And what was cool is that we set these intention words and then transformed those intention words into some powerful affirmations. What I'm suggesting might be a little bit challenging is that I ended up with a bunch of really powerful affirmations and intentions for every area of my life. And the reality is, like, I am not always operating at 100%. And there are times that I'm real lazy. real lazy.
I love that, bringing that to light, because that's a reality, I think, for every human. And like what I find in the power, and I was doing the same thing where I had these long sentences and I was like, wait, I'm trying to whittle each area into a word. So within the vision casting, looking at health, spirituality, finances, whether you had done the exercise or not. And so taking those sentences truly to one word, and my like part 2 to that is when I'm feeling lazy, to remember the word to generate either the thought or feeling for the momentum. That's how I'm seeing that play out.
I think that's really important and valuable, because I was thinking about it this morning just as it relates to nourishment and like diet and making healthier diet choices, because like many people did, my husband and I gave ourselves permission to, for basically the last 2 weeks of 2018, just go off the deep end, like whatever you want to eat, like all the C's candy, all the chocolate. You know, we're not really big drinkers right now, but we did have, or I let myself have some wine during that period, and just kind of did that with the awareness that New Year's is dawning, and on that day we would wipe this clean slate. And so rather than making a list of all of the things that I'm not going to eat, or, committing to something like I have in years past where I said, like, I will slay my sugar dragon. This time I was just like, fresh. Like, fresh is your word for the full year. Fresh is my word for my nourishment. And so just checking in, like, is this food fresh? Which usually is going to translate to, is it a whole food? Did it grow in the ground? Is it unprocessed? Is it bringing, cellular revitalization to my body?
You're like, hello, macaroni, you're so fresh.
Kraft macaroni, and you real fresh. No Kraft macaroni. So yeah, distilling to one word or one simple affirmation and I am statement could be super helpful for letting you rein it back in, or letting all of us rein it back in when we start to become distracted or lose focus on how we want to feel, which I think is a really beautiful segue into what is the first maybe bullet point here of how to continue living with intention, which is simply the continued recognition that your feelings are a barometer and a compass that can help you point the way back to your desires, your values, your hopes and dreams. And that can be as simple as, like, if we use the food analogy, when you're looking at the food options and thinking about what you're going to choose, inquire within about how will you feel 30 minutes from now after you have consumed this food choice versus that food choice. And that might mean that, the prime rib and poutine might not make you feel as good. For those of you who don't know, poutine is French fries with gravy on them. It's Canadian. I'm not Canadian. I don't know. Anyway, that probably wouldn't feel as fresh as, a large salad or a stir fry or something that's going to maybe give me a little bit more energy and less of a desire to go into a food coma.
And I think with the food coma, like, let's say you chose the prime rib and poutine and you go into the food coma and now you're feeling like shit, just like any like less than desirable feeling, you could say, oh, there's some information for me here. Mm-hmm. And like remembering, I don't like this feeling, I'm going to pivot next go around. Mm-hmm. Which happened in real time, as I mentioned last night. Mm-hmm. A gluten bomb to a migraine.
Tell us about that. What happened?
On New Year's, I was like, oh, this restaurant uses fresh ingredients. I'm going to just chill and like go with the group orders. And I have what I know in my experience, when I have wine and gluten, that's my formula for a migraine. And yesterday by 5, and it's like it's a bit delayed, and yesterday at 5 it was coming on, and I was like, oh my god. And I forget what migraines feel like every time, and it started coming in, and for about the 3 hours until I finally got into an Excedrin migraine, I was like, what could I do differently? And just analyzing these feelings and giving myself like the grace and the time for reflection. And I find there's so much interesting information in those like experiences of suffering that suck. And like the information can be so powerful. So having reflection, having grace for myself, feeling supported in ways that maybe aren't like the easiest or my first nature to do. And then I asked my partner to support me when he sees like the gluten wine combo coming in, to just remind me what that leads to, and I can be accountable to remind myself. But it was like to be able to ask for help in that, which I wouldn't normally do. It was the first time that I'm like, could you help me? Like reminder.
So when you come parading in with a baguette and a bottle of red, you're supposed to be like, whoa babe, slow it down. Like, is this really what you want? But I do think that exactly what you said is really important, that you're being provided information through your feelings, and rather than wallowing in guilt and shame, which are two emotional experiences that may come out of choosing something that's not aligned with your highest good or wellness, rather than dwelling in guilt and shame, which only prolong the experience of suffering, see if you can notice, like you said, just notice the information. practice gratitude for receiving it, and then spend some time in contemplation about how you can allow that feeling to help you make a different choice that feels better for you next time.
Yeah, and that the thing about the feelings, like right now, there'll be times, let's say anger, for example, where I'm noticing in real time that emotion of anger and I'm feeling that. And then I'm like, I don't want to feel this right now. And then I might still be in the feeling, but can like breathe and make a different decision. And through that experience of anger was allowed to be conscious to make a different decision. So going back to how important just being aware of the feelings and the emotions, if you give yourself that chance, can give you so much power.
Yes. And, Linda, you taught me something really, really cool that I used yesterday to get out of a negative feeling experience. And I'm trying to remember how it happened. Long story short is my husband and I were about to fight. Like we were about to throw down. I don't remember what over in this moment, which means I do remember. It was he was asking me to not be on my phone while he's driving and I'm riding in the car, and I was responding to emails or grinding on Instagram or doing something that I felt was justified because it was for my business or for work or whatever. But to be fair, it was 4:45 on New Year's Day. I had just gotten off of working on the computer for many hours in which he was watching our child, and we were trying to go park the car so we could go for a walk on the beach. It was crazy. Everybody's out because it's New Year's Day. And so he was asking me questions about where to park, and I was ignoring him and not answering because I was on my phone, which was probably frustrating for him, and not very polite or considerate of me. And so all he did was, he didn't even mention it in that moment, but about 20 minutes later after we parked, he said, I don't want to offend you, but I would really appreciate it if you could not be on your phone when we're driving. And that's what he said, which is totally valid and totally fair. And what I heard is, you're a bad wife and a bad mother also. And you're not giving us enough attention. You prioritize work over your family, and you suck. That's what I heard. And so obviously there's a bit of a difference between what he was saying and what I was hearing. And what happened was I responded to what I was hearing rather than what he was saying. And that sent me into a tornado of emotion where I felt defensive. I felt angry. I felt like, damn it, like I'm working so hard. Like I'm just trying to get in any minute that I can of work because I'm only working 4 hours a day, because I'm making time for our family, because I'm trying to be a good mom to a 2-year-old, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I turned it into this whole story, and a storm started to brew in my mind of this anger and defensiveness and frustration. And I remembered something that you said to me, Linda, this exercise, and you said, consider that you might be an oak tree. Allow yourself to be the oak tree, and your feelings, your emotions are the weather. So the weather is doing whatever it's doing. It's a tornado, or it's a hailstorm, or it's a rainstorm, and your branches might, shake a little bit. Your leaves might flutter. They may even fall off of the tree, but you're not the weather. You're the tree. So reach down into your roots, feel yourself rooted, feel yourself firm, feel yourself strong, breathe, allow yourself to rest in that unchanging, steady nature, and just notice the weather, notice the emotions as they swirl around you. And so in that moment, I did this exercise, and I started breathing, and I visualized myself as the oak tree, and I got quiet, and I just waited. And a very interesting thing happened, which is that after about 5 minutes, I was still angry, but I really noticed and knew that I was not that anger, and that anger was a temporal or a temporary experience that was passing. It was the weather, and I was the oak tree. And it allowed me to separate from the anger enough that I didn't lash out at him. It didn't turn into a fight. And then about 20 minutes later, I shared with him the experience of being the oak tree. And he was like, wow, that's really cool. That sounds useful. And we were able to then have a productive conversation about the difference between what he said and what I heard, the tornado of emotions that followed, and how I was able to bring myself out of that storm without bringing him into it. Right. I brought myself out instead of dragging him in. And I think so, so that was really cool. So if you are struggling with feeling like your feelings mastering you rather than you mastering your feelings, be the oak tree. And see, that might help you. It really helps me. So thanks for that one, Linda.
Yeah, you got it. And I love you put a little spin where you were differentiating your own emotions and yourself as the oak tree, where I've also used this where, you can be the oak tree while someone else may be the weather, whatever form of weather that they're in. So both within yourself and with others. And that's something that I've felt myself. I love when you're like, come join my storm. I've been in that, and being able to acknowledge, like, what if I let that person not come into my storm and be the oak tree, and my storm can pass as quickly or as long as possible. And what I hear you saying is that your experience of anger in that moment was much different than it had been before. And the more I practice this, the same for me, where it just like almost fascinating. And I'm like, wow, I'm getting pretty good at this, even though it still feels somewhat tumultuous, but it's just so much different each time.
It felt extremely liberating. I felt deeply grateful that we didn't go into the pattern. And it is very much a pattern. This is specifically for me, defensiveness. That is my greatest challenge relationally within my marriage. And so, and it stems from perfectionism, right? It comes from this desire to be the perfect wife and the perfect mom and the perfect friend, and people pleasing, where I really, really struggle with like anybody not liking me or not thinking that I'm just the greatest, just like, and in that moment, all he was sharing was, hey, here's one aspect of your behavior that I'm not the hugest fan of. He wasn't attacking me personally. He wasn't saying anything about me, my value as a wife or as a mom. So it was just really interesting to be able to create the space through my breath and through the exercise of being the oak tree to observe the feelings and then allow the feelings to pass, just like all weather does. It has its lifespan. And I've read that the lifespan of any emotion is actually 20 minutes. So if you wait patiently without overly re-stimulating or aggravating the emotion, that it will pass in about 20 minutes.
And the reframe of you saying, wow, my husband wants me to be in his company non-distracted, like, talk about getting the attention and feeling special, like, that's a win.
Which is exactly what it led to. And it took me about 20 minutes to get to that realization. And when I did, the shift or the pivot, as you like to say, was, oh, my husband really loves me. He really likes hanging out with me. And he, just like anybody else, needs and desires and deserves some attention. And all he's asking for is, in this sacred time where we're together as a family, would you be present with us? Which is a really beautiful request and one that I want him to make. So it was cool to be able to experience that shift. And I feel that when it comes to creating feeling-based intentions, the foundation of your ongoing success in bringing those intentions to fruition is to develop a greater awareness of your feelings. Because when we talk about manifestation being the result of an elevated emotion and a clear intention, if you can't recognize your emotional state, and if you can't influence your emotional state or direct it, you've got an extra layer of challenge in being able to bring in the things that you desire. So the more work that we can do in awareness of our feelings and in cultivating specific feelings, or in releasing those that are not serving our end goal, the better we'll be able to continue moving forward in creating the life and the experience that we desire.
Taking the reins.
Yeah, man. So tying in with that is thoughts. So can you talk a little bit about thoughts either creating feelings or feelings creating thoughts, or just the cycle of how these two things work together. And I think we did just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a thought leads to a feeling, and a feeling can then lead to an experience, and it's this process over and over and over again. And I think from the earliest of time, you hear guarding your thoughts, and whether that was, manifestation instruction or not, but you can see clearly how your experiences directly tied into your thoughts. And how do you then dial into what you're thinking every single moment? I don't think it just happens like that. You're having maybe 50,000 thoughts a day. Are you going to be able to gauge and monitor every single one? No, but when you feel yourself off in thought, what I think about now is this thought leading to an experience that I want to have? And just that simple inquiry that literally in an instant, I changed my thoughts. And that practice and reining that in through just being more mindful of whatever the thinking is, the thoughts will be there. The less than desirable or maybe more negative thoughts can be there, but holding yourself accountable to what that's then leading to. And I spent some time over the past couple of days, like re-upping my vision board, and I did this really amazing releasing of actually a bunch of different ideas and thoughts and writing. Everything that I had over several years, I took from that what was most relevant to me today, did a lot of work around feelings, and I feel so dialed in, like specifically today, around guarding my thoughts. What thoughts, with living in that intention of what my thoughts are, what my thoughts are thinking. And then my emotions, my feelings, obviously when there's feelings anywhere on the spectrum, being able to sit with myself and just observe. Like that's been the biggest breakthrough that I've had, is creating space, observing, being able to say I'm angry or frustrated versus just getting right into it. And all of my experiences every day, it's a different, it's not every day perfect by any means, but it's like the personal responsibility and accountability to both thought and feeling.
Yeah. And I think the first goal can be shortening the recovery time, right? Because it's not realistic or reasonable to expect yourself to immediately become a master witness. This is the process that in most forms of mindfulness and meditation, we are ultimately becoming the witness of the thoughts. We're becoming the witness of the mind. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process of noticing and observing, like you said. And so in yogic philosophy, there's a teaching that we have what are called samskaras, which are like ruts or grooves in the mind. If you think of your neural pathways as roads, there are some roads that are more well-traveled. And if these, whether they're dirt roads or freeways, the more you drive on that particular road, the more worn it's going to become. And if we are talking specifically about dirt roads, you'll create ruts, like grooves in the dirt where you've traveled that path over and over and over again. And what happens is when you're cruising along in your wagon or whatever it is you're driving in back in the olden days, it's very easy to, as you're trying to forge a new path, hit one little bump and all of a sudden you slide over and you're back in this rut. And we all have some samskaras. So for me, one of the oldest ones is I'm fat, therefore I'm unlovable. And we don't need to go into today where that comes from, but it's a habitual thought pattern that emerges and that derails me from the process of self-love, of achievement, of being willing to be visible. And what happens is when you have these, and your samskaras may be different. Maybe they don't have to do with body image, but they have to do with relationships, or they have to do with your career. It's anything that you've told yourself over and over and over that becomes this really easy thought pattern to fall into. And so what's necessary is first the noticing. Oh, I slipped back into the rut, into this groove. Then intentionally creating a new path. So in order to get out of that rut, we have to choose an opposing thought or an alternate thought, one that's positive and clear, and then practice repeating that thought many, many times. Because if you think about like how many times in my life have I thought I'm fat, oh, I'm too fat for that outfit, I'm too fat for these pants, I'm too fat to take this picture, I'm too fat, whatever, man, a lot of times. So how many times am I going to need to repeat the replacement thought or the new thought, which might be, I love and accept my body exactly as it is, or I celebrate my body for its strength and its ability to carry my soul around, whatever.
One, but also the habits and patterns, like, could you feel liberation just knowing, you know, most of my experience comes through habits and patterns, and instead of tipping the scale to, I did 10,000 on fats, now I need 10,000 in one, I'm beautiful and amazing, just to know that these habits and patterns may not support you any longer, and make different decisions, different thoughts, different feelings, and then the different actions. You know, it doesn't need to be the tipping point, or can it just be like, today's different and my habits and patterns support me as who I am today.
It can totally be that. And also there's within that philosophy, the idea is that a positive thought carries significantly, substantially more weight or more impact than a negative thought, that it's a much higher vibration. So no, please don't keep a tally, but know that a few intentional choices towards the positive thoughts are going to create a massive impact compared to how it would stack up of the same number of negative thoughts, if that makes any sense. So
it does.
Choosing the new thought, and also, just the noticing is going to redirect.
It reminds me of how some days can feel like so good and so like almost like luck. And it can be, I think, this direct correlation to where you are vibrationally and how you're experiencing your life. And it's amazing.
I love you. You're so cute. All right. So we're doing a lot of noticing the thoughts, noticing the feelings, working to make conscious choices there. We touched on this a little bit. It can be hard to improve your recovery time. So it's very easy to get caught in the storm of the feelings or the groove or the rut of your thought patterns. One of the tools that I think is super helpful in aiding with the noticing is the breath. So can you share with us, for you, how you use breath to direct your awareness, or how you use breath as a tool to keep living with intention?
Yeah, breath to me is a lot of life, right? If we don't have breath, we're not alive. And at one point a few years back, I realized I was breathing all in my chest. I was having just such compression, anxiety. I actually had gone for a lot of heart scans. I thought there was something really wrong with me, and I wasn't breathing right. And so I've practiced like deep belly breathing and filling up into my chest. And often when I get excited, I can also forget to breathe. So that's an ongoing practice of processing emotion with breath. So one is to just feel my lower stomach. And I have a thought, especially for women, it can also be for men, but in our culture of this like body image where it's like tight abs, tight stomach, how we may not be breathing deep into our belly because that's not going to be the tight abs or tight stomach. So giving myself permission to look like whatever months of pregnancy I may have in this process.
Buddha belly.
My Buddha belly, and just to feel that. And so that's more like super conscious at any point in time during the day. And even after my meditation, sometimes I'll lay extra few minutes and just doing, a few breaths in, a few breaths out, holding at the top and bottom. And then the one that's just like kind of my go-to secret breathing technique is I will bring my thumb to my wrist, to the pulse point there, and actually feel my heart beating. And that immediately is like, your heart's beating, you're alive, and I start breathing. And you'll see me sometimes hold my hands like very specifically, and that's what I'm doing. And the Apple Watch is fun.
If you have an Apple Watch, it has a breathe app on it. It'll remind you, if you ask it to, a couple times a day to do that breath work. So yeah, you guys can try that now, finding the pulse point with one thumb on the opposite wrist, and then just close your eyes and breathe, even for 30 seconds or 1 minute, some deep belly breathing.
And like you're alive. Hey,
yeah.
your lungs are pumping air, your heart's beating. Like this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I think those are really valuable tools. One that I like to use is to get into the low belly, just laying all the way down on my back and placing my hands into a triangle. So both thumbs touch and both pointer fingers touch, placing those on the low belly, almost pelvic region. And especially when I want to connect to my femininity, I feel like that is, you know, the second chakra, the sacral chakra, governs relationships and creativity and emotions. And so putting your hands there and just laying down, I do this a lot as I'm falling asleep, and just focusing on breathing into that space. So all the way down into the very, very bottom of the belly and expanding there, and allowing the breath to expand all the way into the upper chest and then all the way back down again. A square breathing is also one that you just kind of touched on very briefly, which is keeping a count. It can be 4 or it can be 6, where you inhale to the count of 4, hold the breath for 4, exhale to 4, and hold the out breath to 4. My husband likes to call this one tactical breathing. They actually do teach it in the military, which is kind of cool. I'm like, oh, you guys do pranayama too? Right on, man. Yeah, we do that too at the ashram. It's basically like the same thing as boot camp. And he's like, yeah. So tactical breathing and using your breath as a tool and as a guide to allow you to reach that place of noticing and observation. Because if nothing else, slowing down to spend 30 seconds or 1 minute with your breath is going to give you the space and the time to observe where you currently are with your thoughts and your feelings. And just for those who may not already be aware, the shallower and shorter your breath, the more frantic and quick paced your thoughts. And so that correlation alone can be really helpful. If you find that you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, panicked, extend your exhalation. Just breathe out slower. And then that'll naturally cause you to take a slower inhalation, and that'll slow down your respiration, slow down your heart rate, and slow down the pace of your mind, which is exceptionally useful if you struggle with anxiety. Linda.
Yes.
What else, Linda? What are some other tools for you that help you continue living with intention and take daily steps towards bringing these New Year's intentions to life?
Well, one of the things that you and I talked about briefly was how it's what before how. And when you're saying what before how, really like connecting with your feeling and your vision and then the action. And there's a process that I had learned where, you know, you start with the result that you want to experience, and then you really get clear on why. And this can be everything from who will it affect in your life, how will you feel, what will be different, and that like driving that purpose, and then what are the inspired actions that you can take. And so that's a process that whether it be a project, you can even use this for a week, you can use this for like master projects, like even part of business planning, but getting clear on the desired outcome, juicing up the why and the feeling, and then feeling that action. And when you say like, how do I carry my intentions? I do what I call a celebration once a week, and that's how I plan my week to come. And with that, I may go through this process to get the brainstorming going, get really clear, and then be able to plug in through different time blocks the action. And some of it starts to feel like less about the discipline of that process and more about the flexibility of each day. But as you go through it, knowing what does need to come to the surface and actually be done.
So can you put that into an example for us as it relates to fitness and exercise, since that's something that a lot of people tend to set intentions or resolutions towards around the new year? And it's something that I think most people do focus on the how. They start with, I will run 3 miles every day, which could be seen as an inspired action, but really it's the how of how you want to whatever, improve your
Yeah.
circulation, lose weight, feel stronger. So can you talk about
Yeah. So
what
for
would
me,
be focusing on the why and the what instead of the how?
yeah, my like desired result around fitness is to feel energized and like operate at my best self, my best self. And so is that like a specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time defined goal? Sure, we'll make it by January 31st. And so then that's my outcome. Why do I want to feel that? So I can be more inspired, so I can have creativity flowing, so I can keep my body healthy, so I can lymphocyze my body, so I can sweat, all these other reasons as to the why. So I can have community, so I can share great workouts, so I can be inspiring. And then what are the actions? It's to pick out my workout outfit. It's to time block 20 to 40 minutes a day. It's to make the smoothie. So that would be an example of some actions. And then the step beyond that is when I have to schedule it. And this is like a Tony Robbins adage, but if you don't schedule it, it's not real. And I'm a huge scheduler. Amen. And I find that to be so helpful in how I live my life. And I've become like very flexible in my scheduling, which took me, 31 years to get to that point. But I see huge benefits to making that time, and not only the time for the workout, but those other things. Maybe you need to get new shoes. When are you going to go to the store to get the new shoes or go order them? It's just like making sure that you're doing all those things so you don't have all of the, well, I can't because, and we talked about this a little last week, but it's like, making it something that you do want to enjoy. Like if you could make that experience 10% better, is it the epic playlist? Is it the new running shoes? Is it having your best workout buddy? But so that it's going to be a way that you can use time that you are living inspired.
Yes. And so we're not saying that you'll never focus on the how, because there will come a point with all of these processes of goal setting and goal achieving in which you have to reverse engineer the goal with action steps. And that is creating a how. It's creating a roadmap for how you're going to get there. But what we are saying is get really clear on the what and the why before you dive into the how. Don't create the roadmap if you don't know where the map is going.
and why you want to go there, right?
And why you want to go there. Yeah, because all that's going to do is create a to-do list for you, or like almost punitive, like almost there's just obligation. You're creating obligation for yourself without having the elevated emotion, without having the true motivation or inspiration, which is your why, or your what. So
yeah, the what I think is the what's like your ammo, it's all those reasons that you're not going to wake up. It's like, no, that this is all the reasons why I will.
Yeah. Cool. So that was talking about what and why before how.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, I think one of the things that this leads directly into is, okay, you have all these inspired actions and these results that you want to take. Are they in line with your values? So you brought up that value checks. You want to lead into that?
Yeah. So value check-in for me starts with looking at the overarching values that are important to you in your life. And so we have our own internal value system, and then we have the value system that's provided to us by our society and by the dominant culture. And those two things may or may not jive with each other. When we try to follow the values of the dominant culture to the neglect of our own personal value system, things don't work. So an example of this is that I gave you earlier, Linda, is like if Mother Teresa was living in LA today and the dominant culture's values are personal exposition and kind of exhibitionism, being visible, earning money, materialism, success in the very Western sense of the word, if she tried to adopt those values as the way that she needed to get her work done, there would be a massive disconnect, because here is a person whose internal value system is based entirely on being in service to humanity, loving other people exactly as they are, non-judgment. And so if she were to try to live within the dominant society's values, she wouldn't be herself, and she wouldn't have become one of the most loved and revered women in the world. She did that by continually reconnecting with her personal values, and that led to a life of poverty. I mean, she was a nun, so she took a vow of poverty, and yet she's one of the greatest people of modern times, right? So when we assess success, and when you're assessing your own success, that's like a tongue twister, assess your success. But when you're doing that, it needs to be an assessment that's based on your personal values. So for example, for me, my personal values are self-love, integration, which is kind of a vague word, but it relates to integrating intuition and experience, integrating thoughts and feelings, integrating the divine masculine and divine feminine, gratitude, health, and expansion. So, and when I say expansion, I don't necessarily mean expansion in the sense of my finances or my public persona, though those might be examples of it, but it's expansion of my consciousness, my spirit, and my heart. So I can use those values to check in with my what and my why, and then also to check in with the specific actions that I've reverse engineered towards my goals. So if I find myself saying, I need to book 3 coaching clients this month because I need money, I want to make more money, that is a less effective, when I do my value check-in and I say, well, does that statement align with these values of self-love, of integration, of health, of gratitude, of expansion? Well, we could maybe like square peg round hole it into expansion, but it's not really about expansion of consciousness. It's not about expansion of my heart or my spirit. So instead of thinking I need to book these 3 coaching clients because I need money, can I shift that into, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work in a way that allows me to be in service to other women, that allows me to be empowering other women, that allows me to expand my heart, spirit, and consciousness as I serve them in growth towards their highest self. That feels way better. A lot more words, but it feels really good. And so when I reframe and put it into that perspective based on my value check-in, then it centers me and it brings me back to a place where my actions are aligned with my values. And instead of it being greed or scarcity or financial need that's driving the bus, it's my values that are driving the bus.
And then your values drove the bus to 5 clients instead of 3 because it got like supercharged.
Exactly. Yeah, it's putting the turbo booster on the bus, man. My bus, I just had a vision. It's like a psychedelic rainbow love bus. It's like got wings and it's like flying. It's flying to self-love and gratitude.
What's its name?
I don't know.
Cherubus.
Cherubus. That's good. Yeah. I like that. So for you, Linda, what does the value check-in look like? How do you use that?
I think my value check-in feels like this is an interesting question where my values are commitment, growth, connection, integrity, fun, adventure, family, service, love. I don't know if I'm at that like inspired action, running it through that filter. I feel like I'm doing that more from the goal of like the alignment check on that front end. But it's interesting bringing up to each of the actions that they're actually aligned, but it feels like it's already threaded in. And this has empowered my nose Like so easy. This makes
Like your no, like your sniffing nose, or like your no thank you nose.
my no thank you. And I feel like the fuck yeah or no, like that's, you know, everybody's like, but not everybody, but that's
real trendy.
Like yeah, it's like a thing. And but is it like is it that? No, it's just simple. Like this isn't important to me and this is, and so no. Or yes. And it's like the alignment, the values alignment. So but to consider that through every one of those steps is one of my takeaways.
I think that what you're saying is the value check-in is more helpful than asking yourself the question of like, is this a full body fuck yes? Because there are going to be things that are beneficial, necessary, important in your life that don't always feel like a full body fuck yes.
And but that's gotten me into trouble
with your values.
Yeah, those that sometimes I love intuition and I lead with intuition, but like some things aren't like the full body fuck yes, and they might be the things that need to be done. And so when
some people might be a full body fuck yes, but they are not the people that need to be done, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, when I don't want to do laundry.
No, laundry's not a full body fuck yes for you.
No, but that for me.
It is for me. I get naked and then I take all the warm laundry and I just like lay in it and I roll around in it and I sniff it and then I fold it. I'm just kidding, but I'm gonna start doing that.
That's your actions, your takeaway.
That's my action step for keeping my house cleaner.
Service. Laundry for me is about service, commitment, connection, integrity, growth, even family. It's starting to become fun. But it like lines in, but is that an inherent like F yeah? No, it's not. And so I needed to like this for anybody that's maybe been going through that F yes or no ethos, add the value alignment to it to be even like take it up a notch.
I agree. What else do you have on your list here? So we've talked about feelings, thoughts, the breath, our what and why before how, doing a value check-in.
I want to touch on resistance. You had said embracing resistance, and resistance has become one of like the most powerful things of 2018 that I feel like I really could understand. With resistance is information. So when I'm feeling that natural, like there's an opportunity for me to look at a part of myself that it's not natural ease. So is that something that I need to change? Is it something in the environment? And just understanding like what's behind the resistance and the information in the contrast. And contrast provides information around what you truly do desire. And so when that clicked in, I feel like I'm living in a space now that even in the most frustrated moments, I can say, oh, this is resistance. There's contrast to what I'd prefer to experience. How do you elevate your thoughts and feelings there versus getting swept into like a less than desirable experience? And so embracing resistance for me, that's what that really means, more for like the information of like preference.
Yeah, and I think it's important to differentiate between internal resistance and external resistance, because there's the resistance that comes up from within us where we are resisting doing the things that we need to do to get to our goals or to get to our destination. And then there's external resistance, which are all of the circumstances that seem to come out of nowhere and prevent us from moving forward on the path. And I think that this is where intuition does become really important, because I like to, say, like, imagine you're walking down a road and you're headed somewhere and you have a little bit of a roadblock. Like there's an orange cone in the road and you're like, oh, okay, there's an orange cone in the road, little warning sign, but whatever, I'm just going to keep going, right? And you keep going, a couple feet later, black cat crosses your path and you're like, I'm not really that superstitious, so whatevs. I'm gonna keep going. You keep going, and then in a couple more feet, there's a fallen log across the road, and you're like, oh, fallen log. No big deal. Let me just climb on over this bad boy. So you climb on over, you keep going. And then there's like, a big fissure in the road. It's a big crack. It's like the road actually separated and divided. And it's no big deal because you can just jump right over that bad boy and like get to the other side. If you continue doing this when you are being provided multiple obstacles, roadblocks, signs from the universe or God or nature, whatever, fate, that where you're like getting these warning signs, but you keep ignoring them. You're ignoring the resistance and you continue on down the path. Usually at some point, there's going to come a point where the road just stops and then it's a big fat cliff leading down to a black hole of destruction, doom.
I just pictured you in a video game through that whole thing, by the way.
Yeah. And so another way I like to say this is like God whispers first. And then if you don't listen to the whisper, you're going to get a regular talking voice. If you don't listen to the regular talking voice, God's going to shout. And like, you don't want God to shout. Like God shouting is like life falls apart. And so whether you believe in God or not, what I mean by this is if it's external resistance that is designed to redirect you towards a path that is for your highest good, when you ignore that external resistance and keep pushing and pushing, it often leads to a place where you no longer have the choice and the decision is made for you that's going to redirect you towards your highest good. But that's usually less pleasant than if you made that decision in your own agency and power.
And how internal resistance can be, you know, the similar like talking tos, like noticing that your emotional spectrum for the information. And that reminds me of when I was really realizing it was time to make the work transition. And, you know, it was getting to a point where I was getting sick and it was like, I hate this. And that was like the everyday story going on internally. And it just finally got to a point where I'm like, all right, this is time. And it was like enough of the ignoring of years of that story and to really embrace it because there was an internal guidance system.
Yes. So please do not allow the adage of embracing resistance to keep you in toxic, abusive relationships, a work life or career that is oppressive and stifling you, unhealthy behavior patterns.
Embrace the information of resistance.
Perfect. So much better. Embrace the information of resistance. And then along that same point, remain as much as possible in a state of flow and in the willingness to adjust, adapt, and change. Adapt, adjust, accommodate.
Meditate, realize.
Yeah. So I think we've got a lot of great stuff there. Is there any other salient points you want to share today about ways we can live with intention?
Yeah, for 2019, I think this is the perfect way to end out incubation time. And I want to loop this into the opportunity for some kind of daily commitment to a meditation practice. And then your own intentional incubation / creation time. And when I have conversations with people that feel so stuck, confused, heady, one of the first things I ask them is, how much time are you making for creation? And when they're like, what are you talking about? And they think that's like the craziest suggestion ever because there's not enough time. It's like, how are you letting your soul and essence bubble to the top when you're not allowing the time and space for that to happen? So just observing your schedule. This is something that I've had to intentionally create because I can be such a scheduler, and have even gotten to a point where I do like a quarterly me day where I do hotel tonight and like spend $50 to $100 and stay somewhere to create. And that's just to make sure that I'm making, unadulterated hours of creation, which can sometimes be hard to come by. And the meditation practice, since Shivananda's ashram experience of 2015 January.
Little plug for Shivananda right there, shivananda.org.
And that's this is the 4-year anniversary of that experience.
Yes, but 4 years ago today, Linda and I ran off to an ashram together for a month and spent some quality time in the presence of the guru and the people in the orange robes. It got really weird. We'll save those stories for another day.
But this practice, I'd been meditation curious for years because it was like the latest health trend. And I'm like, gosh, like I'm talking about all this other stuff, but I haven't meditated. And now it's like a disciplined 2 times a day practice that I love and learn so much from. And whatever way meditation speaks to you, I encourage you to explore that. And one of the things I realized is my last name is in the word meditate.
Oh, snap.
Mic drop.
All right, so I do want to say this couple things. If you are resistant to the idea of meditation, or if you think that you are not a good meditator, or if you think that meditation just doesn't work for you, you are not alone. There are so many people who think that meditation is the process of sitting and emptying your mind, and they feel that they fail at it because one time they sat down and they tried to empty their mind and they discovered that they could not do that. And
Because
that's
you
not.
can't.
Yeah, because you can't, because that's not what meditation is. Meditation is drawing on the truth that our mind is actually only capable of holding one thought at a time. So meditation is the result of concentration. So when you're first trying to meditate, there's so many different ways you can meditate. It does not have to be sitting on a cushion and closing your eyes and breathing and saying Om, though that is a great way to meditate if you're open to that. And that's kind of what most people commonly associate with meditation. But meditative states can be anything where there's a state of flow. For some people, going out and surfing would be a moving meditation. For some people, they find that running is a moving meditation. Whenever you can bring yourself to a one-pointed state of your thoughts, being in an uninterrupted flow on one focal point, that is meditation. So preliminary experiences of meditation can be sitting down and just noticing the breath. It can be that breath exercise, sitting down, and for 5 minutes, you're going to focus on feeling the inhalation as it comes in through your nose, travels down your windpipe, filling up. You're not actually filling your belly, but that sensation of filling the belly, and then feeling the warmth of the breath as it comes back out. There are a lot of great resources for meditation. You can check out the Headspace app. You can check out YouTube. There's a lot of meditation.
I like Insight Timer.
Insight Timer is a great app. There's obviously heaps of books out there around meditation, but my encouragement to you would be skip doing a whole bunch of research about how to meditate. Find a simple practice that you can commit to, like Linda said, a couple times a day. Even if you're starting, I really encourage you to do your best to commit to 10 minutes, because I think it takes the first 5 minutes to actually kind of find the flow of your breath. And if you're using a mantra or a focal word or focal gaze or whatever, but that 10 minutes, if all you have is 5, do 5 twice a day. If you can do 10, do 10 twice a day. It's an absolute game changer. And I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who always said, I can't meditate. I suck at meditating. I'm bad at it. When I'm in the practice, it's just so transformative. I'm a happier person. I have more clarity. I accomplish more. And I just have more intuitive awareness about myself, my thoughts, my feelings, all of my values, all of these things that we're talking about. So meditation, I truly believe, is the most powerful tool that you can use. And if you, maybe we'll throw out a little bonus episode this week. I don't know what you think about that, Linda. Throw out a little bonus episode of a short 10-minute meditation experience for you guys. I think we can commit to that.
Yeah, hashtag love it. And when I first meditated, I literally couldn't sit still. And I was like that person doing it wrong. And I did 1 minute. And I did it. And then it was like the next day, 2 minutes. And it was this gradual process. And then I graduated finally to using the Headspace app and, all the way through to a more formal process. And so just start with your 1 minute if this sounds like too much for you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so much goodness there. I would love to know, do we have any reading tools for our listeners today? Okay, Rise to Thrive Book Club.
Rise to Thrive Book Club presents. I came into this book recently because I heard that this was the inspiration to some of Napoleon Hill's work, who Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. And this is called The Master Key System by Charles Haanel, and this is from the early 1900s. So I've heard feedback that the delivery can be a little different. Some of the language is a little bit challenging, and then you may ask, well, then why is this this week's book club book? Because it talks about the vagus nerve, which I love the vagus nerve.
Oh, I love the vagus nerve. Also means the wandering nerve. Vagus in Latin means wandering. And can you tell us a little bit about the vagus nerve and what it does?
Like, I think vagus nerve is part of life force. It connects, pretty much all of your body systems to your deepest intuition. And a lot of the breathing practices stimulate your vagus nerve. And anytime I see the word vagus nerve, I'm like, these people know what's up.
Yeah, so vagus nerve governs your parasympathetic nervous system. So when we talk about the rest and digest, the subconscious, these are governed by the vagus nerve. So when we tone the vagus nerve, there's a lot of tools for that. You can take cold showers. The Wim Hof technique activates and tones the vagus nerve. Meditation, kirtan, chanting mantra. So those all tone the vagus nerve. But when we do that, it affects your heart rate variability. So it improves your recovery time and your ability to move out of fight or flight and into a calm state much more quickly. So much, maybe one day we'll have a whole podcast about the vagus nerve and about how to stimulate parasympathetic nervous system, because that is some cool shit, man.
There's one thought that the master key system shares that I'm going to abridge, that is essentially saying about how conscious thought is your sun center of life energy that is bringing out to the experience that you have in nature as the result. So treat yourself if you're looking for a challenge with the master key system. And that is this week's Rise to Thrive book club.
I'd like to leave you with one parting thought that may benefit you if you choose to enter into a meditation practice. And this is something that I do. I make my little sacred space, bring my cushion. Sometimes I have some tea ready to go, or my coffee for when I'm done meditating. Try to avoid the coffee before the meditation. But as I sit down, I say to myself, damn, it feels good to be a gangster. That's all. Rise to thrive, my friends.
Mic drop.
We'll hope you will continue living with intention, and that these tools have given you some takeaways and some action steps, things to think about as you continue to bring your New Year's intentions to life. Thank you guys so much.
We love you.
We love you. We love all the feedback. Thank you guys for sharing and for dropping your comments and for just doing this ride with us. And we'll drop you a meditation podcast sometime middle of the week next week. So we gotta let you guys know when that's there.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, man. And make sure you come back and visit us next week for more gems that we will provide weekly so that you can thrive daily.
And we're out.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.